Page news, and that is a photo taken, and I think we have a close-up of it, of a Libyan rebel near the front line between Ajabia and Brega in Libya on Wednesday. Now, as we know, NATO is quite split over how to go forward on this one, despite English and French pressure, I suppose, to keep up the pressure on Gaddafi. And in fact, there's an interview with Rasmussen, who is the head of NATO, in Der Spiegel online, Der Spiegel's English page. Now, he says there is no military solution to the Libyan conflict. He's very reticent indeed about continuing to fight it out there. He says that he does not want to send troops in ground troops into Libya. What's more than that, and this has been a very central question, he does not want to send arms to the rebels, and this is quite a central issue. He says that a strict interpretation of Resolution 1913 says that there should be an arms embargo. Now, this, as we know, flies in the face of what France and England want. So it's pointing to those very big divisions within NATO on what the way forward is for Libya. So,
a bit more insight into the idea of that material support. Some think it should be more military than others. Moving on now to the New York Times.
Yes, indeed. Now, I suppose, there's a lot of focus on Libya. There are other countries in the region as well which are seeing upset. Iraq, for instance, which is very much off, I suppose, it's not really being focused upon. Now, there's an interesting article by Tim Arango from Baghdad. He speaks about the increasing frustration of the youth of Iraq and young MPs with the political elite, made up largely of exiles who came in with the American tanks, as he put it. Now, he spoke to dozens of young people across the country, and the same message was repeated over and over again. There is no real democracy in Iraq. Young people are completely excluded from the system. Power is increasingly centralised. Leaders don't know the meaning of the word democracy. Now, it's worth pointing out that the average age in Iraq is 21 years old. Now, we saw in Tunisia and Egypt that the youth of the country, the demographics played a central role. But in Tunisia, for instance, the average age was 30, so it's so much younger again in Iraq. 40% of the population is under 14. That compares with just 33% in Egypt and Libya. Now, they have a lot of interesting details. For instance, a Facebook group was recently set up that has echoes of Tunisia and Egypt about it, to organise protests back in February looking for improved services. Now, one journalist, who I think is pictured here, Ali Abdul Zara, he says that a friend of his was beaten by police. He was told, "You want freedom? I'll show you freedom." And he was asked if he was the Facebook guy. So we're seeing shades of what happened in other countries, but much lesser than obviously for now.
There's been less of a take-up, is there, on Facebook?
Yes, much less of a take-up. And another thing that they're pointing out is, despite everything, at least they can protest a little now. That would have been impossible during Saddam's time. But as they finish with this sentence, I think it's quite, emblematic. An Iraqi Spring, it is not.
Let's move swiftly to the New Statesman.
Yes, now this is quite a funny article. Now, a big story in the UK at the moment, of course, is the phone hacking scandal. The biggest selling newspaper in the country, the News of the World, is in serious trouble. Murdoch-owned paper for hacking.
They've admitted it now.
Yes, indeed, for spying on politicians and on celebrities. Now, Hugh Grant was one of the people who was spied upon. He decided to take his tape recorder along and to record what was said by Paul McCullen, who was one of the journalists who blew the whistle on this whole story. And it's an incredible read, actually, on the New Statesman. So he gave them kind of a
taste of their own medicine.
It's the bugger bugged, as he put it. And so there's all sorts of details about Murdoch and about how Cameron probably knew about the whole thing. And it really, it's very difficult to sum it up, but it's well worth a read. And just the fact that he I suppose, recorded or bugged the bugger, I suppose, is already brilliant. Now, I just want to very quickly finish with The Guardian. And this headline: only 2 speakers of Ayapaneco remain alive. Sadly, they won't speak to each other. Now, this is in Mexico, in the state of Tabasco, and it speaks of Manuel Segovia, 75, and Isidro Velasquez. They're the only 2 remaining speakers of this language, but apparently they just don't get along. They live only 500 metres apart, and as one
linguist... They definitely won't be having any children to pass it on to.
Definitely not. And as one linguist says, Segovia can be a little prickly, and as of the other speaker, he is more stoic and rarely likes to leave his home. So basically, I suppose if they don't speak to each other, the language is effectively dead, isn't it?
It's a sad story. They need to get over their feud. Many thanks to you, James Tweeder, for taking us through the international press. It's time now for a reminder of our top stories here on